Yeah, hello everyone. This is basically working group 4 related thing. Initially we used to have, and then we had some sort of SDK discussion on this time. So we're going to go back to this. I have shared the agenda for this meeting. Let me try to open up the slide. Hope you can see my screen. So I'll just play a slideshow. Yeah. Sorry, my throat is not well, so I'll stop. So basically, I shared this document and I got some comments. So I thought we'll get started in this meeting. That's why I requested Steven to give some time on that. So hopefully, thankfully, he has given us a lot of time. So basically, this meeting and this document is all about nephew user experience and scope and requirement. What we try to do is categorize this nephew user experience into some subcategories. Like for example, if I had initially mentioned in one of the chat, I think about, let's say, sorry, it's about defining few things like what is the nephew users, and who are they, how they're going to interact, what are the input standard we are going to work in nephew, and these are all our topic on themselves, which can take a lot of time to define and all those things. But we hope to get started with this and have some meaningful outcome out of this, and have a meaningful task out of this conversation, so that we can define clear interfaces, specification, and POCs out of this. So I have tried to give some examples over it. Like for example, interfaces, what we are trying to define and what are the areas for us. And if you're modeling, which Tall already started working on it, right, with related to the Tosca. And if you're tooling, like for example, SDK development, which helps user to onboard and do a lot of things. These are the tasks. And also if your UI also, I have mentioned, we can discuss on this if you all agree on this. These are the few subsections which we hope to discuss and have some interaction and fruitful discussion over it, so that each and every subtask can take its own course. So if before we start, if anybody has to make any overall comment about this document, you can let me know, or otherwise I can start with the slides. I think, am I audible?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. All right. So the first thing I would like to have a community to agree on that who are the nephew users, right? Many times we have interaction and many discussion we have which we had, it comes out that there are few users, not only the primary telecom operator user, which team says that it's not the one only, right? So we can agree with that. But the till now, whatever the discussion we have and whatever the use cases we are working on, the onboarding the 35GC, onboarding the RAN thing, the primary user looks like to be the telecom operator, but we can discuss on that. That's why I have put that as a user, and anything related to making the life of telecom operator will be part of this kind of discussions. How he experienced the nephew, what are the point he interacts with the nephew, whether through the UI or whether through the API and all those things. And the second thing is NF vendor, right? So NF vendor obviously creates, they are the vendor. They develop NFs, right? And they have to interact with the nephew in a way like providing how they're maybe the controller when they develop the controllers, when they develop the maybe KPT functions, KPT packages, and all those things. So that is one of the users for us, and making their life easy in terms of providing SDK to quickly build operators, quickly build all those onboarding things will also be part of the user experience in my opinion. That's the third thing we got a comment from Bernard that cloud infrastructure provider is also going to be the user. So I'll just put a point, maybe we can discuss that. And another can also put in here that if there is another user which we feel there will be, like for example, obviously the northbound interfaces, there will be a lot of API calls will be there. So a lot of slice management tool things and all those 3GPP standard or the northbound interfaces team and all those things can be interacting with Nephew, but can we call them a user? I'm not sure. So maybe others can tell me about this topic now. So yeah, I'm looking for any input now from the community. Like, tell me if these are on the correct lines of the Nephew thought process, or is there any deviation? Yeah, team, please.
Yeah, so I think I made a comment before on this, right? And so
Yes.
the question is, and I don't, if we're doing Nepio in the telecom context, I had concerns about a primary user, but we're doing Nepio for telco only, Nepio for telco, all right? Then these users are, are the typical, people that are users that are involved, right? And if vendor, you got the operator, right? The service provider, and then you have the cloud infrastructure provider, right? Or the cloud provider.
Yes.
And so I don't disagree with any of that, right? My concern was that I thought I heard um, from a broader community that Nepio itself, as an open source, was intended for other domains as well that want to use, some cloudification of their functions, whether it's automotive or wherever. So my concern is that if that's true, then we've got to account for the fact that there are other um, providers of the cloud, right? Not the infrastructure providers, but the users, as would be a telco operator, right? So you can imagine it could be, an enterprise like GM or something like that. So I just leave it at that because I don't
Okay.
know that right now everything that we have is all telco. So, but if indeed we're expecting these other industries, being so focused on telco, when we do this stuff may very well bite us
Yes.
in the future.
Yeah. I mean, technically, my understanding is more or less same. Like, there is nothing in the Nephew which stops you to not take it to other domain. Like, it's a kind of a automation process, right? You can develop any. Ultimately, what it orchestrate is an image. An image can be anything. It can be NF image or any other images. It's basically a software only, and ultimately it orchestrates a software. And you can define anything to interact, like how your one component interacts to another component. You can have your inputs, you can have your intent in that way also. But yeah, I mean, what I understand, it doesn't, I don't think so it stops it. But what we understand right now, as you agreed, that it is the use cases which we are trying to deal with is all telecom. So I put that point here. Let's hope. I'm not sure whether shall I mean, I put that all other users. I mean, I'll update
And
this.
I'm missing the importance of a primary user. I mean, you mentioned it as a primary user, even as the
Mm,
service provider, the telecom
mm,
operator that you have, which is really just a service provider, right?
mm,
As a primary user, right?
mm.
What's the importance for the primary user in this?
I mean, that's what we see as of now. My understanding. I mean, Tall and Wim can comment here if they wish.
Well, my comment is that from the very start, I found the whole idea of defining this according to user experience is strange. So I guess if we are going this path, then yes, we have to define the users.
Yeah, but I don't
Yeah.
know what the importance of a primary user is over a user. What's a
I I'm
Why
also not
designate
sure.
primary?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I mean, this is my understanding. I mean, we can, if we want, we can modify that as a primary. There's no need for put it that. This is just initial understanding. I can delete, I mean, remove this primary user and keep it just as a nephew user. No problem with that.
I think maybe the intent here is to think that it is primary in that this is usually the customer, but it's usually the customer. It's a bit more complicated than that, right? There are scenarios of system integration and other things where whoever is paying the money might be different users, right? So the primary user, I think, could change according to the situation. And at the end of the day, from a technical perspective, it really doesn't matter who the primary user is.
Yeah. Okay, I'll take that comment and maybe I can just
And by the way, so Wim is in chat. He can't speak. So he just said that we miss all the operator rules. This is discussed in R1. See the R1 API document. They were listed there. I don't know if you have value. I don't know if you have access to the meeting chat, but
Yeah, I
that
think
came from Wim.
cool. I think the primary user, I think is definitely something we can remove that because because we could definitely NF vendor also is also the, I mean, they wear a different hat, platform vendors. The one other thing we could add is the system integrator here.
Okay.
Because in a lot of the larger deployments, depending on the telecom providers, actually, for example, many telecoms, they want to do it themselves. I just don't want to take names. I have the examples, but I'm not going to take names here. And many telcos, they take the help of a SI, such as, for example, Accenture, Capgemini, or NEC, IBM. So some of the telcos, they take their help in order to put together the overall deployment together. So that's how they are also the users of. But again, they are proxy for the telecom operator in that sense. But I agree not having the primary because.
That's second
Yeah,
case,
I
no
think
problem.
because NF vendor, everybody is at this point of time is the primary user.
All right. System integrator, do you want to elaborate more on that, like how we can, like, ultimately the goal is once we have these users here, we need to see from their point of view what are their point of contact in the nephew, so that their experience is easy or thing. So what are the operations you see them doing, system integrators?
System integrator, they are essentially putting the pieces together. So at this point of time, they will be working with the NF vendors APIs. They'll be working with the OSS, BSS, northbound APIs. So I think the one that you put for the network operator, telecom operator, I think you can almost mimic it for system integrator for now. But essentially, they will make sure that they will do the same thing like the telecom operator, but telecom operators have hired them to do it instead of doing them themselves. Because I know in a very large scale, both the scenarios exist. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense a lot. Yeah. I think, point taken, all the point taken for this slide. Yes.
Similar to telecom operator, I would say, not the NF vendor.
Yes. Sorry, I wish I have requested access to the doc. Yeah. Sorry. My mistake.
Did you request me? So what was the comment, Sandeep?
No. I saw your comment now. You
Oh,
need
yeah.
You need access. I'll just provide after this meeting if that's okay.
Yeah, that'll be fine.
No, is requesting access to the other document that it's been
Istvan actually has.
So it's been shared like a document.
Okay, that is not my document. That is actually in the nephew, should be in the nephew folder, but space or somewhere. But I will try. But it is not my. Okay, I will try to. I will look into while you are talking.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, even I do not have access to that. I maybe Tal.
This document is actually I put in my private Google Doc.
So Sandeep, just to correct, system integrator is similar to telecom operator, not the NF vendor.
Okay. Sorry.
Just that's the one thing. Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah.
Okay.
Who was talking?
Team or someone.
So, well, I think Bala has his hand raised, so go ahead, Bala.
No. I'm done with it. Yeah, please.
Okay. So again, I'll just go back to some of the ORAN stuff, right? And so when they defined an ORAN, they defined some of these actors or users, right? And so again, there's what you call a telecom operator, or they call the service provider, right? There's the O Cloud operator, the entity that's going to operate the O Cloud. In other words, it's going to be the responsible party for exposing the resource that the cloud will operate on, right? Ultimately. And then there are the application / NF vendors themselves that provide the actual, applications, right? With their requirements to the what you have as a telco operator, we have a service provider. There's also the infrastructure itself. There's a cloud infrastructure vendor or provider, right, that you have that provides the infrastructure itself to the operator. So I'm just struggling with what we're trying to do here in terms of identifying these users, right? And then I'm trying to correlate them back to what I know.
Okay.
In ORAN, right?
The point, which if you can answer that, the point is when we identify the users, we will find what are the kind of operation they will do in the NFU, and then we can work on having the good experience in the sense of solving their problems. Like for example, if I say that telecom operator, they want to have a onboard, they want to onboard their NF easily. That is kind of a experience they have. So those kind of field we can work together. If there are some other user, or for example, we identify that there will be a API based invocation of deployment from the northbound interfaces, then they need to know what kind of model they can supply, whether they how they picture in the whole entities of a NFU. If we can make each and every NFU component as one entity, and then they can model that in their system in any languages like XML, Tosca, or anything, and then they can send those model information, and then that can be automated. So the point which here we're trying to find is that once we identify the users, we will be able to find the use cases, and then accordingly we will be able to solve the problems, right?
So I think Tim is maybe pointing us at the solution here. I think instead of defining users from a business perspective, we should define them from a functional perspective. A system architect, a topology designer, a network function packager, right? It's more about the roles that they have rather than what company they work for. I think that's where we're kind of muddying the waters here, because the business landscape is something that changes. I think we should call it functional users and think of what the person is actually trying to do in the system.
Okay, point taken. That should be better. I'll update that accordingly, no problem. Okay. Okay, so yeah, a point taken. I'll just update this document and accordingly that, and I hope I'm clear that what is the purpose of defining
but then I'm going to get so if we're doing it functional roles people play, which is what you want, right? You have a service provider, you have a network function or application vendor, you have a cloud operator, you have a cloud infrastructure provider, but I don't have a thing called a system integrator. A system integrator may very well operate a cloud for me, but I don't know what else a system integrator would do, right? So it ties things together, but it does it in a certain role, right? And so that's, I think, going back to the role-based stuff, because you're going to describe roles. I can be a service provider that I'm operating the network as well as providing the cloud, as well as operating the cloud. So let's get it to the roles instead of the users.
Okay. Makes sense. Makes sense. Yeah. All right, so we'll update that accordingly. Thank you for your inputs. So if you can, where is that? Yeah, so I think I'll update this one with respect to the roles, and things will be more or less similar. But All right. So if there's no further comment on this slide, we can move to the next section. Do I see any raised hand? I think Tim, you had. Right. So I think no one. Okay. I mean, sorry. Bernard has asked me to. Excuse me. Bernard has asked me to update one slide which shows that how each and every, I mean, the user will interact with the each and every functional block of Nephew, and that have to work on it. So it takes some, I will take some time to do that. So I just left it for the placeholder. So now one of the section which we put is something like a Nephew inputs, right? So I mean, there were few, this is just an example, as I told here also. These are just example, and sorry. And the actual values will come from the different, maybe the different team, the modeling team and other team who defines that. So this is just an example which I have taken from this particular 3GPP specification, right? Where we provide the standard input and attributes for the particular NF functions, right? And the point is we need to define them, right, in one of the ways, whether we define in this section or other section. But those attributes has to be, I mean, can be standards, right? So that is what I'm trying to say in this slide. I heard that this is not the fixed line, fixed attributes. Obviously, team says that there are other standards. I agree. I have put them here. That other standards will also come into picture, and these are just examples, right?
So I again, I didn't understand this piece of it, right? So you're saying, I guess we're focusing on kept package creation?
Yes,
Yeah,
because that is where we provide a lot of input as of now, right? Whether it's dependencies or capacity or other yeah, kind of a intent thing. Yes, during the KPD package creation. Yes.
Okay, so why isn't like Sol 3 or Sol 5 Etsy as an input standard to this then? I see you got the NRM, right? Okay, that's
Yeah,
fine.
I mean,
that's just
this
a
is
model, right, of those elements.
Yeah, I've not put anything related to the salt. Yes, this is because this is one of the example I have taken. That, as I said, there can be many standard inputs will be coming, so we need to define them and have them. So this is the point to discuss.
Okay, so help me understand something, right? So in the modeling, help me understand, because I honestly don't know, right? Because I thought that the modeling was going to say, okay, how do I take, you know, existing artifacts like Helm charts and stuff and I'm going to just say the word Nephioize them, right, or whatever, or use them in Nephio enablers. So help me understand exactly. Is that what we're trying to do when we're modeling?
It not exactly, and maybe related to this. For example, ultimately, when you, I mean, Tol can talk more about the modeling because of working with, but my understanding is this: like when there are many things about the model, and when this can also relate to the Nephew interfaces, which will cover that. When we define interfaces, right, then some other entity can talk to Nephew, right, whether from the northbound, southbound, or east to west, right. When they talk to Nephew, they will talk in some standard or some specific way, because they cannot send any data, and Nephew will not and will think that Nephew will understand, right? They will talk in some standard or some format, right? And that is what, and when they give some values, right? A software need to understand those values, right? So those values has to be specific, or maybe standard, right? So yes, when the model comes up, it can tell, yes, these are the attributes we'll support, these are the attributes will not support, right? For example, I mean, model itself has to be, defined right now. I can let the talk about it, but in my understanding, yes, it could. Those values can come from after the modeling team decides what are the models, what are the APIs, what are the values of those inside those models. So yes. Paul, would you like to comment here?
I kind of feel like it's a topic in its own right.
Mm.
We could. I do. My own perspective is that modeling is more than just interfaces. It has something to do with data architecture, and so it's outward facing, but it's also internal facing, right? Because it says how we actually conceive of our resources, right? Configuration as data, this basic philosophy here means, and our declarative cloud native philosophy means that everything really becomes data, including representations of implementations, right? I'm getting a bit philosophical here, but my point is that modeling is more than just protocols and interfaces. And I think if you look at how Yang works, it's kind of the same, right? If that's your starting point. So Yang, yes, it ends up being modeling the data for the netconf protocol family, but it's more than that. It tells you kind of the internal structure of the configuration of your functions. So I hope that makes sense.
So, but what I'm missing though, Tal, I'm sorry, I'm struggling with what we're trying to do, right? So is this group going to develop a Nefio information model? Is that what the end result of it is? That's what our scope and charter is about?
I don't know. I also found it strange that UX and modeling were put together, to be honest.
Well, I'd even separate. A group can do two things. I'm not very worried about it, but the modeling.
Yeah. Well, I think eventually, yes. I think we're looking towards an information model. Yes.
Okay.
But that's my opinion. That's my opinion. It doesn't mean that that's what we have to do.
So probably information model and also maybe a specific data model. So isn't this the endeavor same as what we are trying to do for the release 2, Tal? And I don't know, Wim can speak or not. We had a very specific CRDs for each of the deployments when we just supported free 5GC. Obviously, we refactored it to make it some of the common pieces together when we brought on another vendor, in this case, another open source OAI.
Yeah.
So isn't it the same? So isn't that also a part of this?
Absolutely, yeah. So until now, my whole point in proposing this, and it's myself and Bernard together, really, is that until now, modeling was handled in SIG 2, and I'm not saying it was handled bad or anything like that, but part of what you're talking about is what I call the meta model, the rules for how we model. But as it grows, I think the way it worked until now is that SIG 2 would report on modeling to SIG 1, but it wasn't very conducive for a good input, right, between the two SIGs. Because at the end of the day, our user stories are also very, very tied, I think, to our models, our conceptual models. So the point that Bernard and I were trying to do here was to suggest that we would have one place in SIG 1 where this discussion can happen. And it doesn't mean that it's owned by SIG 1, and it's not about commands, but it's about a collaborative space where we can talk about modeling. And, for example, where we have so many models, right? And they have to work together. We're talking about a policy frameworks, right? We're talking about observability, right? All of these have to do with data, and the question always is, okay, what are your entities? What are your IDs? Things like that I call the meta model kind of flow through everything, right? So even though we're talking about different formats, I think at the end of the day, we're talking about bundles of properties, entities, and the relationships between their entities. So having one place to discuss this all, document it well, right? I think would benefit all of us in terms of clarity, and also help explain the project externally. I wonder if that answers Tim's question too. Towards an information.
Well, it's a little bit different right? And I agree. Okay, so you're talking about an information model, but you're referring to modeling of the Nefio enablers. So leave it at that. Because the input standards, right? That was on the slide were actually modeling or providing models for the actual applications that are being deployed in Nefio. Different animal, right? One is dealing with how do I model the Nefio enablers. The other deals with how do I model the applications that get deployed in a Nefio environment. And maybe
right,
they're both.
And I think
Maybe they're both, but I think you better separate them because you don't want to.
Exactly. I think once we start getting into it, I think that's why I said I don't want to quite get into it now, because you're right. It's a bundle of a lot of different models for different purposes, for different functions. And yes, I think we do have to separate these. We have to relate them too, but we have to work on them separately.
Because again, if it's going to be Nefio is only telco, that's a different story, right? And actually wireless telco, the way it looks right now, is what the current use cases are oriented towards. Then that's a, I don't want to mix the enablers and any of the modeling that we do with that with the actual applications themselves. So
I agree
think they're
entirely. Yeah.
okay. And again, I'm looking forward 2 or 3 years down the line when we take this to other domains like automotive, plant automation and stuff.
Right, and part of the goal, I think, in creating this modeling area where we can work is that when that happens in the future, we'll have a place where we can discuss the impact of that, right? From a pure kind of interface perspective, right? In terms of what are the entities and how do they talk to each other, right? Anyway, okay. I'm agreeing with you.
Yes. So Tall, I mean, what am I understanding this your modeling is that we intend to find each and every block of Nefio, and for example, and then define them. Like for example, if I can correlate when I was working in NFP, like we used to have model the rack, the server, the data center, the VMs, the RAM, the memory, everything in XML format, and the orchestrator will come provide all this information and their relationship, and then the automation or the NFO will find each and every relationship and then try to deploy them. If we see that there are 2 VMs, it will create 2 VMs. It will, if it finds there is an attached monitor, it will create a monitoring tool for that. Is it what you're trying to visualize here?
Yeah, to an extent, yes. So exactly, to find a place where we can answer questions like that, one to many, many to many. What are the entities that we relate in that way, right? What are the instances? What things have IDs, right? IDs are incredibly important for interfacing with other systems. So thinking of ID management too is a big part of it as well, right? If not one of the major ones. So in terms of like XML or whatever, we can decide of a group if we, some people love UML, we can decide to document this in various ways. But I'll say that we're still very early on. I think the first step, which is probably something that I'll do, I think I volunteered to do it, is to first gather the models that we have right now, create an inventory of what they are, what are their names, and document what they are, right? How they're used. And then from that kind of grow into, well, can we relate these models together and start to visualize things in diagram? And hopefully that will give us insights into exactly the topics you mentioned.
Okay, it makes sense. Yeah. Sorry, I jumped it here, modeling. I think that's kind of covers this slide of the modeling and what Tal says about how it is going to grow. Yeah. So I think I have to go back. Yeah, the interfaces, I think what we would like to work on, what my understanding is going further is, as Tal also told in one of his presentation in face-to-face meeting there in the conference, sorry, that these are the interfaces we need to define. And as I mentioned that there are many discussions have come in there where there were a request to define a clear interface from the NFU, which can be used by the northbound interfaces, southbound interfaces, and maybe east-west, what Tal calls that inter-component kind of thing. So this is also, we feel that this could also this field also needs to be worked upon, right? So maybe we need to see how we go about it. And yeah, I mean, specifications are the main thing, I think, which can come out of these exercises, right? I think, yeah, just read through any comments. Yeah. Okay, if there's no comment on this, I'll move to the next slide. Modeling we're done. NFU tooling is what many times we feel and which we're working many times for developing SDK, which deals with the user interaction, which deals with the user experience. As I said initially, when we're defining users, many things, many tools can be developed to enhance the experience of a user who uses NFU. For example, ease of onboarding when they want to migrate from kind of a Helm way of deployment to NFU way of deployment. When they try to create packages, can they create quickly? Is there any tools which can take some of the input from there and create packages automatically? And I mean, these are the things which I have mentioned here. I'll just also mention logging and debugging. I'm not very sure about it whether that can be called, but I just put it based on my understanding. Also, the ease of life cycle management can be if we can develop some sort of thing, but right now my understanding is it's not there, and we already do it as part of our business logic in the controller or the NF operator which we create. So yes, tooling we feel is an important part of user experience. Any comment on this slide?
So thank you, Sandeep, for putting this together. I think some of this may belong to maybe some of this may end up in being requirements to the other projects such as Porsche and KPT, right? Such as ease of package creation. That's kind of a cross-cutting concern, not only specific to a network function, but in general, right? For example, ease of package creation, ease of package version creation with minimal of changes.
Yes.
Obviously, they have certain tooling around that, both from the CLI and Porsche API perspective. But if we find any other opportunity, probably some of this may become requirements into the other those teams to satisfy our needs. It's what I'm thinking at this point of time. But I'm very glad you captured all the use cases here. But that's how at least I'm thinking for some of these use cases.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Any other input for this slide or any comments? Or shall I? I think no comment. And the last thing which I have put is about the NFU UI. This is, I thought, just to put in there and see the perspective of community. This is also a kind of a very important point when the user interact, because UI is generally, I mean, one of the ways where user interact with any product, right? We do have a UI. We do create, we do clone the KPT. What I have seen and what I have done is that cloning the KPT package from the different repository, creating a package variant thing, and then deploying them, and then automatically other things like fixing and all those things takes place. So these things are there, but few things which I have tried to explain is that if we can, I mean, I don't know what kind of level of user function we are expecting to have in the NFU, but I'll just put them a point that these are the possibilities, right? For example, step-by-step creation of KPT functions. KPT functions are created right now programmatically. Obviously, it's a Go language. Image is there in some other repository. We just use it. I'm not sure whether we can provide anything for that, but we just see step-by-step creation of NF functions, right? What did I say there in function? Mistake, yeah. I mean, I'm just trying to say that whatever the information we provide right now during the creation of the KPD package, like, providing the capacity information, the dependency information, can there be a UI based operation? Right now, everything is in a YAML format and all those things, and it's all bundled up. What I see right now, so everything is available. But can there be a possibility that those operations can be done in the UI itself, right? Also, I have put a kind of a stretch imagination that if the UI can also show you kind of a topological information to seeing that each and every package, each and every cluster, each and every workload cluster, where we can see what is happening in the clusters, how many workloads are there, and if we can even see if observability can also, I mean, we can see the status of them, right? Whether they are up to the mark, if whatever the intent was there, is it has been achieved or not, and those kind of things can be seen in the UI itself. So these are the things which I have tried to put in. I'm not sure how much is required and how much is needed in NFU right now. Yeah. So any comments on that, please can let me know, and if this is, makes sense.
Actually, not much of an expert of NFU, but Sandeep, some of these, they all need to be performed by various roles people. Some cannot be done in the back automatically.
Yes, I mean these are overall function. Obviously, who does which operation can be obviously defined by the roles. But in general, these are the functions can be available in the UI. We can see who performs them when. But that, yeah.
Sure.
One possible new bullet point to this list might be something that is not it's not a task that is carried out by some of the roles, but a GUI element that would help us to explain how the internals of Nepio work. For example, we already talked about onboarding new developers, new contributors. It might help to show the insides of what are the package variants, what are the package variant sets, what are the clones, how to follow the path of, for example, one kept package from one clone to another clone, and finally to a deployment via config, things like that are not really a traditional GUI in a sense that it enables a user to carry out some task, but will help. It is like an interactive slide that explains the internal workings of what we are doing.
I think
especially in these early stages when new releases are more like just POCs than actually production grade actual products. So for example, release 1 is more like a particular scenario, a POC for a particular scenario, and not a generic purpose tool at this moment, I think.
Okay, I think you raised this question sometime back as well when we meet in.
Yes, we already talked about this, I think, on Wednesday.
Yes.
Online doc user manual.
Yeah. I mean, I've just noted the point. We can see that how does it goes. I mean, there were a few talks about it, like we can provide the documentation about all those things which you're talking about separately in wiki and all those things. But what are you saying that it can also be part of the UI where user finding some sort of a express way to doing things, and he knows what he's doing. If he clicks one thing, that automatically tells these are the things you need to do. I mean, if you want to create a KBD package, it tells you that yes, you need to have you can include the pipelines, and pipelines are these are the pipelines available. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how possible, but I've just noted down to see how far it can go. Thanks for your input. Okay, I think
Yeah, I think I just want to acknowledge what Istvan said. I think that maybe that's a good idea. It's basically a visual representation of the contents of a package. I think it's some of it's already available today, and also visual representation of the workflow itself and what's happening in the system. I think that will actually speed up the learning curve of anyone who wants to learn about the system, because they exactly know what's getting in, what's the input, what's the output, because we have a visual representation of that, and we will also have the representation of what's exactly happening over the workflow and what's happening in each step. So that's a great idea if you can get to that kind of a UI level, Istvan. Yeah, great idea.
Yeah.
We
Yeah,
used
and
to
I
have,
believe.
yeah, Istvan, I also acknowledge there is something called in-context user manual. If we are getting stuck and getting error, just go right click, user manual, and correspondingly, in which step it is, the in context, the user manual will come. Good suggestion.
Yeah, thank you, Iswan. So I think that's
He was
all.
telling something. I think I cut short. Istvan was telling something.
No, I just wanted to say that eventually it might also help us to create the Nephew studio, visual studio of some kind, a designer. And so I imagine that such a GUI would have elements that are showcasing that how the topology package, the kept package that includes basically package variants or package variant sets that are referencing the blueprints of the NFs that are in that topology. So if we can show that, then it is just one step further to make it an editor. And now we have an FEO design studio where you can create such a package by drag and dropping and connecting pieces together. And so to reverse the flow of information, instead of visualizing what is already there, instead of creating new kept packages. I'm just saying that it can be an intermediate step towards that. That's all.
Okay, yeah, point taken. So I think I don't have any more slide after that. So that's all slide we have. So in general, we touch all the point which we feel can be part of the user experience, how it makes the life of the user of an FU easy, right? How it can use it from various inputs, maybe the manual, maybe the automatic way, maybe the API way, and what we felt that he can model also from the different perspective. So maybe I can talk with Tall about this. I mean, if there is a disconnect, I mean, if that's to be separated for the models, I can discuss with Tall, and maybe I can update this PPT accordingly. Yeah, I think it's done. All the point which I wanted to cover is been covered. So is there any other open point by anyone before?
I don't think this is wrong, but I would emphasize maybe a user feedback, something we're not really great at right now in our GUI. I think that's what I think Bala was it Bala? Sorry, I forgot who mentioned it. But yeah, well, yeah, maybe on this slide, emphasize feedback, right, which has to do with status, right?
Okay.
So we do mention here intent status, but generally I would love our GUI to be kind of I have an example of a GUI that I wrote that I can show that shows, hey, the package was deployed, it's on green right now. Or if it wasn't deployed, you immediately see the error that you had in deployment, right? A single pane of glass, not just for doing things, but also for seeing things, for knowing what the current status of your network is, right?
Yes.
From Nephio's perspective only, right?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I think That's what I was also feel. I also feel the same. Like if it can provide some sort of a viewing and manage how NFs are functioning, or maybe the KPT function, how it's functioning. So yes, maybe what you point is feedback kind of thing.
Right. You say intent status. I think it's more than that, right? It's
yeah.
But sure. I guess it's captured here. I guess so.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe intent / deployment status. If you just add a / deployment, that may be.
Yes. Okay, I'll update the slide.
Right, especially for day 2 things, you know, you might have an intent, but in day 2 something happened. You want to know about that. Let's say it's scaled out or self-healed. You know, it might be an event log, it might be a notification. I don't know, whatever the GUI wants to how it wants to show it. But it goes beyond your initial intent, right? Because the status can change. That's the reality of cloud.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's a very valid point, and I'll capture that, and I have taken it here, and I'll update the slide 100%.
Well, one more thing we need to offline sync with Bernard. He has some suggestions in the Slack that come up with some objectives, right?
Yeah,
the deliverables for this working group.
I think. Yeah, I think I skipped through that slide, but I think I have updated it because we had something. I just tried to do that objective and motivation. After his suggestions, I tried to put them. So he just wanted to put that whole summary in one page. So I have put it here. Hopefully he sees and he can give comment on that. Yeah. I mean, these are the objective of my understanding of this working group is to come up with all possible users in FU, how they all those users provide inputs and how they interact. What do they interact with any kind of API from north, south, east, west interfaces? Modeling is what I thought can be a part of the user experience because ultimately whatever modeling defines will be used by someone and to interact with an FU, whether it's a not-bound thing, because once you are modeled, right, your components of an FU and you define the relationship between that, someone has to use it, and when he use it, he has to provide some sort of, I mean, he'll have some experience, and then if your UI functions, Todd.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. So here's we're kind of going back to what the user is. I think we kind of assume that our users are humans, but I think when we start talking about interfaces with other systems, well, these users are they're users in quotation marks, right? These users are other components, right? So we're other machine components, right? So this is why we have a kind of bleed in between. So in this work group, we're talking about making things more humanly accessible, right? Accessibility is the key, but also machine accessible to other systems.
Yes, I mean, I never intend to say that the user are the humans only. If I say the interfaces, API interfaces, obviously it will be called by any other software component. I mean, that's what my intention was. Yes. Maybe
Except that usually when we say users, we talk about humans. This is why it's a little bit confusing.
Maybe I'll rephrase that word and put it in a way that it generalizes the system to system, software interface to interface call. I'll update that slide accordingly to make sure what you're saying is captured.
So just call them system roles, right? So again, in ORAN, we actually call them robot heads to get away from the actual, think that there's a person, any manual thing with orchestration, right? So, but I think you're talking about, instead of users, we're talking about a set of system actors, right? You can call them system actors that implement a set of that act in certain roles, right? So that's just call them actors and call them roles, right? You'll be all right then.
Yeah, that might be better. I think that the better title is just call it interfaces. User interfaces are one kind of interface, but we're also talking about other interfaces, right?
Oh yeah. On interfaces, it's just interfaces. Sure. I thought you were talking about users.
Okay. Point taken, 100%. Okay, I'll update the slide accordingly, whatever the input I've got from this meeting, and I'll share across. And we hope to move forward in all of those directions And as you said, all every topic is meeting his own way. Yeah, Tim, you raised the hand again.
Yeah, just real quick, because I'm just trying to get what's going to happen in this group, right? So I know that there was and this is selfishly just looking at it from an ORAN's perspective. So, but I understood that there's some activities going on about, how do I take Helm and Tosca and make them kept or use kept and all that stuff, that translation piece. I think Liam also had some stuff in that place. Is this the group that's going to be talking about those issues?
We mentioned the tooling, and tooling, what do we mean that the SDKs will come out of the tooling. So yes, I mean, we already, as in one of the slides, if I understand your question correctly.
And I realize it's down the road, but I'm just trying to figure out,
yes,
if it would come from this.
Yes.
So the enablers would come from this group, right? Okay.
Yeah, that's what I understand.
Right. Thanks. That helps.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, thank you, Sandeep, for nice presentation. Very detailed. I really appreciate this whole time you've taken to create it and also present it to us. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you everyone who participated here, and I'll update all the slide accordingly and share the updated version. And as I said, hope to move along in each and every direction of this subsection. I think that's about time. If there is no further question, we can end the meeting now. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.